They had the talent, they had the fans, they had years left in the tank, and then they walked away. Some left because of injuries, some left because of personal reasons, and some, they just couldn't keep fighting the system, the media, or the pain. These aren't stories of decline, they're stories of what could have been. Today, we're looking at NBA legends who retired too early and how their exits changed the league forever. Basketball is a game of moments. Every player dreams of leaving on top, but few get that choice. For every LeBron or Kareem who stretches their careers for decades, there are legends who disappear at their peak, leaving fans wondering what more they could have achieved. Some were forced out, some chose peace. But all of them left behind legacies that remind us, greatness doesn't always get a full chapter. Sometimes it ends mid-sentence. Brandon Roy, the superstar who never got a chance. At his best, Brandon Roy was poetry in motion. He had the footwork of Kobe, the IQ of a veteran, and the calm of a champion. But his knees betrayed him. By 27, he was done. Cartilage gone, pain unbearable. In just 5 seasons, he became a 3-time All-Star and one of the most respected players of his generation. Portland fans still talk about what could have been, because if Roy had stayed healthy, he might have been one of the greats. Yao Ming, the giant who carried a nation. Yao Ming was more than a basketball player, like he was a bridge between cultures. At 7 feet 6 inches with elite touch and vision, he was redefining what a big man could be. But the stress on his massive frame was too much. Foot and ankle injuries piled up until he had no choice but to retire at 30. In just 8 seasons, he became an all-star, a global icon, and a Hall of Famer. His body couldn't keep up with his heart, but his impact outlasted his career. Larry Bird, the legend whose back gave out. Larry Bird's mind for basketball was unmatched, but his body couldn't keep pace. By the early 90s, his back pain was so bad he could barely sit on the bench without lying flat on the floor. Still, Bird kept playing through it, winning, leading, and redefining Celtics basketball until he simply couldn't anymore. He retired at 35, far earlier than fans wanted. If his back had held up, Bird might have added a few more championships to his name. Penny Hardaway, the superstar who was next in line. Before injuries, Penny Hardaway was supposed to be the next face of the NBA. Smooth handle, explosive athleticism, elite court vision, he had it all. But multiple knee injuries stripped away his quickness and robbed fans of a career that could have been legendary. He was a 4-time All-Star before 28, and part of one of the most exciting duos in NBA history with Shaq. When his body broke down, so did Orlando's hopes of a dynasty. Tracy McGrady, the scorer who never stopped fighting. In his prime, Tracy McGrady was unstoppable. A 6'8" guard who could score from anywhere, glide past defenders, and make it look effortless. But back and knee injuries wore him down too soon. He retired at 33, never capturing an NBA championship. Not because of talent, but because his body simply refused to cooperate. McGrady's early retirement left a question mark that fans still debate. What if T-Mac had stayed healthy? Bill Walton, the genius who couldn't stay on the floor. Bill Walton was one of the most skilled centers in basketball history, a visionary passer, defender, and leader. But chronic foot injuries destroyed most of his prime. He missed entire seasons, and by the time his body briefly held up, he was already nearing the end. He retired at 34, leaving behind flashes of brilliance, including an MVP season and 2 championships. If he'd been healthy, he could have rivaled Kareem and Russell in all-time greatness. Michael Jordan, the first goodbye. Yes, Jordan came back. Twice. But his first retirement in 1993 at the absolute peak of his dominance shocked the world. He had just won 3 straight titles, captured every award possible, and then he walked away to play baseball. While his reasons were personal, fans can't help but wonder what records he might have shattered if he'd never left. Even though he returned later, that early exit remains one of the most shocking retirements in sports history. Magic Johnson, the sudden goodbye. In 1991, at 32, Magic Johnson was still one of the best players in the league. Then came the announcement, HIV positive, immediate retirement. The basketball world stopped. Magic's exit wasn't just early, but it was heartbreaking. He was forced to step away at a time when HIV was misunderstood and feared. He later returned for exhibitions and a short comeback, but his prime years were lost. Even so, his influence and courage changed sports forever. Chris Bosh, the star forced to quit. Chris Bosh was in his prime, an all-star, a two-time champion, and one of the league's most respected power forwards, when doctors discovered blood clots that threatened his life. At 31, he was told he could never play again. He fought for years to return, but ultimately had to accept the truth. His career ended not because of age or decline, but because of survival. And the grace with which he handled it made him an inspiration far beyond basketball. Brandon Jennings, the talent that burned too fast. Brandon Jennings exploded into the league as a teenager, scoring 55 points in just his 7th NBA game. He had speed, flair, and limitless confidence. But inconsistent teams, injuries, and off-court issues derailed his potential. By 28, he was gone from the NBA. Jennings' early exit wasn't from lack of talent. It was from how fast the game can change when you don't find the right fit. His story reminds us, in the NBA, talent gets you in, but timing keeps you there. Gilbert Arenas, a superstar who lost his way. Gilbert Arenas was one of the most electrifying scorers in the league. He was fearless, clutch, brilliant, and beloved by fans. But off-court issues and injuries wrecked his career. His decline was sudden, and by the time he walked away, it felt like the league had lost a pure entertainer far too soon. Amare Stoudemire, explosion cut short. Amare Stoudemire was a dominant big man whose combination of athleticism and power changed the game. But chronic knee injuries forced him into an early decline. He reinvented himself multiple times, but his true peak ended far earlier than it should have. If his knees held up, the Suns and Knicks eras could have looked very different. Alonzo Mourning, retirement forced by illness. Alonzo Mourning eventually returned and won a championship, but his first retirement came far too early. Kidney disease forced him off the court at a time when he was still one of the best defensive players in the league. His comeback was heroic, but his early retirement robbed fans of several years of dominance. The unsung trailblazer. Some early retirees revolutionized the game in subtle ways. New moves, offensive techniques, defensive strategies, but they left before the world fully appreciated their contributions. Their legacy is celebrated yet incomplete. The player who burned out. The NBA's intensity can lead to burnout. Some legends start strong but retire early due to exhaustion, disillusionment, or loss of motivation. Their decision is understandable, but fans are left mourning what might have been. The international star who returned home. Global players sometimes leave the NBA early to continue their careers in their home countries. They achieve success internationally but are missed in the league. Their legacy is global, yet fans still wonder about their NBA potential. The defensive specialist lost too soon. Defense is often underappreciated. Legends who excel on the defensive end but retire early leave a gap in both team strategy and fan appreciation. Their contributions to wins and momentum often go unrecognized. The playoff performer denied opportunity. Some legends shine in the playoffs but face teams stacked with talent. Early retirement robs them of further postseason stories, leaving fans with memories of a few electrifying series instead of a full championship arc. The mentor who inspired beyond stats. Certain players may not dominate statistically, but shape the game through leadership, inspiration, and mentoring younger teammates. Early retirement deprives the league of their intangible influence, the legacy that remains unfinished. Ultimately, all early retirees share one thing: The world wonders what could have been. Records unchallenged, games unwon, rivalries incomplete. Their accomplishments remain legendary, but the shadow of "what if" ensures they are remembered not just for what they achieved, but for what they might have. The injured icon. Injuries are often cruel and unpredictable. A player's prime may last only a few seasons before chronic ailments force them out. Fans are left remembering flashes of greatness and imagining the records that could have been. The player who chose life over legacy. Retirement decisions are sometimes personal. A player may leave to pursue family, business, or a different career. Their choice demonstrates values beyond basketball, but it also leaves a lingering question about what their prime could have achieved. When legends retire early, fans lose more than highlight reels. They lose possibility. Every "what if" echoes through time. What if Roy's knees held up? What if Yao stayed healthy? What if Penny never got injured? But maybe that's what makes these stories powerful. They remind us that greatness isn't just about longevity, it's about impact. Some players burn for 20 years, others only need 5 to become unforgettable. Because in the end, legends aren't defined by how long they play. They're defined by how deeply they're remembered. And these players, they left too soon, but they'll never be forgotten.